They're not just using some conventional Pokemon there. There's some awesome things like Cobalion. You know, you got Whimsicott. You have a sand versus a rain matchup. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, talk about matchups we haven't seen in what feels like ages from Series 8. Brendan is going to be running a team with many different modes to match his many different accomplishments, getting top 64 in the European International Championships back in 2018, and doing well in Perth. It seems like Perth is Brendan's area to roam, and pretty consistent finishes, dating all the way back to 2015, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, Perth is definitely the place to be for Brendan there, and you see Cobalion, and you know I'm more focused on the Tyranitar and the Lycanroc here. Of course, you have Whimsicott with Cobalion to have the typical beat up Terrakion strategy. Well, you can't do that because you already have two rock types, so you opt for Cobalion instead, who also has the justified ability, who really appreciates beat up. And on Darcy's end, having the rain option in Politoed and Kingdra. But you do have some slower options here in Gothitelle and Glastrier as well. So Darcy seems to really have a well-balanced, you know, offensive, fast, and slow Pokemon balance on his team.
And that's honestly where Politoed and Kingdra shine. I mean, mind you, I am terribly biased towards liking Politoed and Kingdra, and I just want to get that out of the way right now. But Politoed is on the slower end of the spectrum and really wants to operate as more of a supportive Pokemon, getting access to Helping Hand, Perish Song, which has amazing synergy with Gothitelle's Shadow Tag ability, preventing Pokemon from switching out. So being able to look at your opponent's team and predict, are they going to go fast, are they going to go slow, and then bringing Trick Room or bringing Regieleki and Kingdra to sort of adapt to that is really going to be, I think, Darcy's game plan going into this matchup. Brendan team has so many different modes on it. I mean, you mentioned the beat up from the Whimsicott. Dragapult has beat up too, so there are two different ways that Cobalion can utilize that justified ability, get those attack boosts, and get the ball rolling. But a lot of the Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field are going to be fast. The Tyranitar is probably the slowest Pokemon that Brendan has access to, so I think Darcy is going to take things a little bit slow with the Trick Room game one, give Politoed some time to shine, and I'm really looking forward to see what Brendan has to answer the threat of Trick Room, because those Pokemon are so powerful. You have to wonder if a simple beat up justified attack is going to be enough to shut Gothitelle down.
Yeah, I'm always down, Gary, to see Politoed shine in a matchup, especially like this, because you would think, you know, conventionally water types are pretty strong against rock types there that you have with Tyranitar and Lycanroc. But of course, it also depends on the speed tiers, right? Because a lot of times, if you have that slower weather setter, I can't believe we're actually getting to talk about weather wars that aren't set up from like Dynamax Pokemon. They're actually the ability-based weathers being activated here. I love it. If Tyranitar is slower than Politoed, you know, depending on how they're trained, I don't expect that to happen, but it could happen. Then you can have the rock set up and have that increased, you know, special defense because of the sandstorm. But if Politoed's slower than the Tyranitar, then you got some trouble, because not only are you not getting that sandstorm boost, but then you have those super effective water attacks facing you down right on the first turn with the rain set up to boost the damage.
And you always got to worry about the possibility of a Scald Burn as well. So I think these trainers know how these speeds are going to match up. Let's take a look for ourselves as we enter winners round one over on the Oceania side of the bracket.
This should be an exciting matchup. I know there are a lot of viewers at home who really do enjoy watching Weather Wars. It's really been a staple in VGC history, even back to, you know, the beginnings. All you can think of, there's been a lot of years where weather and different Pokemon that set up those weather were actually very useful. But no rain or sand as of yet, with Gothitelle and Kingdra is the lead on Darcy's side, and Dragapult Spectrier for Brendan.
Sending in Kingdra without the support of Politoed and the Drizzle ability to set rain here, I think is Darcy's way of playing it super safe. Even if there was the Tyranitar out on the field for Brendan, all you have to do is switch in the Politoed for that Gothitelle spot, and then Kingdra will be able to outspeed both the Spectrier and the Dragapult on Brendan's side of the field and get its pick of which Pokemon to deal some big damage to, most likely with the help of a Dynamax boost.
And here is the other option, thanks to the dynamic speed mechanics in Pokemon Sword and Shield. The Pokemon, the abilities with Swift Swim or, Sand Stream or anything that boosts your speed, you get it right away. Everything has changed. Like Max Air Stream, speed is a completely different ball game here in VGC nowadays. So Kingdra is able to effectively get the Swift Swim here thanks to Politoed switching in on this turn without having to risk Politoed being there on turn 1. So I think that's like it's a very cool mechanic that has changed within VGC. That is something you always have to account for, because it's not only what will Gothitelle and Kingdra go for on this opening turn, it's, well, what if Gothitelle switches out into Politoed and sets up the Rain, adds a whole nother layer of interactions for these trainers to have to think about each turn. But this is a Rain boosted Max Geyser from Kingdra into Dynamax Spectrier, and that shows how much damage the Life Orb and the Rain really helps Kingdra out, as it almost knocks out Spectrier. Of course, Spectrier not the bulkiest Pokemon in the world, but considering it is Dynamax, that is still a notable amount of damage. The Breaking Swipe will be super effective, doing a little bit of damage to each of Darcy's Pokemon, and then the Max Phantasm from Spectrier will lower their defenses, but does not take a knockout.
It doesn't, and I love the fact that Politoed is going to be around for another turn, but you have to wonder if honestly putting Politoed within knockout range is enough. That's going to punish the possibility of Politoed switching out and in to reset the weather and to keep the rain up on the field. You also have to think about the option of Perish Song and Shadow Tag. If Politoed is gone, that is no longer a win condition that Darcy can rely on. So missing the knockout, but I think doing enough to ensure that Politoed isn't going to be as big of a threat as it could have been otherwise going into the rest of this game. I like the Dynamax on the Spectrier as well, because like we've seen in earlier games, those Max Phantasms really just have great synergy with Dragapult in particular, and allows it to do so much damage.
Ally switch out of Dragapult, so that is going to switch the locations for Spectrier and for the Dragapult. Max Wormwind out of Kingdra though, and he calls the ally switch. Either Darcy called the ally switch, or it didn't matter because the Spectrier was so low on HP anyway that either way, the safest move was Max Wormwind. Regardless, an excellent second turn out of Darcy here. This Max Phantasm does go into Kingdra, does have is able to hang on with just a little bit of HP, so there will be a third and final turn of Dynamax for Kingdra here. An excellent move out of Darcy here, Gabby, because now the Spectrier is very low. We see the reveal that Brendan did not bring his sand here. It is Cobalion and Whimsicott in the back there. So now the Politoed and Kingdra don't have to worry about sand anymore.
They don't, but that is a very interesting way to bring the back of your Pokemon into this game. Like, usually Cobalion plus a beat-up user is one of the first Pokemon that you like to see on the field. You take advantage of Dynamax so that you have all that extra health, and you use the Dynamax attacks, the Max Steel Spikes, to boost up your defenses to ensure that, you know, this Pokemon that is now magically at +4 attack is still, it's just really the Pokemon to beat. Every single Pokemon that Brendan loses prior to getting that Cobalion on the field next to a beat-up user is going to impact the number of hits beat-up will connect, as it is based off of how many Pokemon are left standing in your party. So you might only get 2 attack boosts off of a beat up, and I'm not sure if that's really going to help Brendan out, given how insanely powerful this Kingdra has been right off the bat.
Third and final turn for both of these trainers for Dynamaxing in game 1. The attack does go into Kingdra's Max Guard though, so Darcy making the correct call that Brendan wanted to target it down to knock it out there. So no KOs this turn thanks to the fake out from Gothitelle going into Whimsicott. Now all the Pokemon are back down. Kingdra is still going to be the fastest Pokemon on the field thanks to the Swift Swim, but Whimsicott might have something to say about that.
I think it might in the form of Tailwind, but you have to ask yourself, do I Tailwind in front of Gothitelle, who definitely knows Trick Room? You know, if I look at the team sheet that's in front of me, it's a dangerous move because you're making your Pokemon faster at this point in time, but if Spectrier is unable to secure that knockout with a Shadow Ball onto the Gothitelle, which, spoiler alert, it's holding a Focus Sash, so it won't. that's going to be fairly difficult. Brendan could double target the Gothitelle with the Whimsicott and the Spectrier to ensure that knockout, but then Kingdra is going to be able to do some huge damage with a Draco Meteor, with a Hurricane, or with a Rillaboom that's coming out onto the field. It's a very tough spot for Brendan to be in. I don't think you think about speed control at this point in time. I think you just have to think about damage output.
There are only 2 turns of rain left, so Darcy setting up for later in the game with Politoed and Kingdra back. And in the back there, he can switch in once the rain goes down and reset up rain for Kingdra to take advantage of. Life Orb does not knock Spectrier out there. Would have been funny if it knocked itself out from its own damage, but Gothitelle's Hypnosis doesn't connect onto Whimsicott, so no sleep this turn. As Rillaboom just switched in there, still no knockouts.
Still no knockouts, but a perfect opportunity for Gothitelle to go for Trick Room if Darcy decides that's the priority. I'm not sure if it's as important as it was in that previous turn, knowing that Darcy did bring Rillaboom to this game and that Rillaboom has the grassy terrain up and can use the grassy terrain to attack with Grassy Glide and get that priority. Spectrier will be knocked out within 1 hit. Whimsicott, especially knowing that it has a beat up, it's not going to be really doing a lot of damage to these Pokemon. And Cobalion, while it does have great typing and it does have access to bounce in order to hit that Rillaboom super effectively, it's really going to struggle against the Politoed and Kingdra, assuming they are still able to move first and get that damage down.
Grassy Glide connecting onto the Cobalion that switched in, and beat up will be the strategy used from Brendan's end this turn. Thanks to Cobalion's justified ability, it raises its attack by 1 stage for every time it is hit with a dark attack. So in this case, it will be 3 boosts there because the Dragapult was taken down. So that's a +3 Cobalion, still pretty healthy. Of course, Trick Room is the option for Darcy here. The Cobalion is a relatively fast Pokemon, so you would assume obviously that the Gothitelle and the Rillaboom are going to be moving before it. As rain is ended here, that will mean that once Politoed comes back in and Kingdra comes in, that the rain will be back up, making Kingdra really slow because of the Swift Swim under Trick Room.
Yeah, I think that getting Trick Room up at this point in time is definitely the right play, but I think that Darcy might be looking to rely on that Hypnosis from Gothitelle in order to stop this Cobalion from attacking, and given the Worry Seed ability, and given that Hypnosis isn't that accurate anyways at the end of the day, I just don't think that's a viable strategy.
It's never accurate at that point, because Worry Seed, he just gave, Whimsicott just gave Cobalion Insomnia, which means you can't be put to sleep, and if Gothitelle keeps trying to go for Hypnosis every turn, it's not going to connect on that ability. So that is such a big brain move out of Brendan, understanding Gothitelle's best strategy is to put things to sleep. Well, if I'm an Insomniac, that's Cobalion's biggest issue. I can never go to sleep.
I mean, I feel kind of bad for Cobalion, but I guess that is an advantage at this point in time, and also correctly targeting Gothitelle's partner, because Gothitelle, believe it or not, does not have access to any damage-dealing moves outside of Fake Out. We've seen the Hypnosis, we've seen Trick Room, there's also a Helping Hand hidden in there, but none of those moves are going to help this Gothitelle deal damage to the Cobalion. So we're in a very interesting position here, where even though Gothitelle is still at full health, and yeah, there's the Rillaboom in the back too, all Brendan has to do is keep targeting the Pokemon that is next to Gothitelle. Cobalion can't be put to sleep. It can't be flinched again, since Fake Out only works on that first turn. If Kingdra is able to be slower than the Cobalion in the rain because of the Tailwind, and if it's able to connect that Hydro Pump, like, that is what Darcy was looking for.
This is huge! Hydro Pump in the rain. Oh, Cobalion knocks it out. What a turnaround here on 1 turn from Darcy. Kingdra taking itself down thanks to its Life Orb there. Dazzling Gleam connecting on to Gothitelle for a little bit of damage. But Gabby, we were all set to see this Cobalion verse the world and kind of waste the slot that Gothitelle was in. But no, because of the Tailwind earlier, Cobalion ended up being faster than the Swift Swim Kingdra there, and Kingdra undersped it in Trick Room. That was insane.
And Cobalion couldn't have even stalled out the remainder of Trick Room because it does not have access to Protect. It is holding the Assault Vest item. So really,
that was through Assault Vest.
Yeah, every single bit of damage counted there from Kingdra. It needed the rain boost. It needed Hydro Pump to connect. Like, that was Darcy's win condition. Brendan did a fantastic job of playing to its outs. It's just unfortunately that Tailwind meant that Cobalion was faster than Kingdra, which is great information going into Game 2. But for Game 1's purposes, Trick Room with the Tailwind, that's just how the game is gonna play out.
And finally, Gothitelle connecting on a Hypnosis. This Whimsicott can't give itself insomnia at this point, so it's going to be asleep. And of course, it's the two Pokemon to one in this case where the Whimsicott really can't do much. It all does come down to Rillaboom. You think about it with either U-Turn or Grassy Glide or any move it wants, because the Gothitelle has no damaging move in this scenario.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you bring that up. I can't help but wonder if in, Game 2 or maybe even Game 3, we're going to see a Whimsicott versus Gothitelle end condition where Whimsicott would win because it does have access to a attack. But for the time being, Whimsicott's going to take a little nap, and we get to see how much this Helping Hand boosted U-Turn does. That
does a pretty good chunk there, looking around maybe 40% with the Helping Hand U-Turn. But you can see how little damage the Dazzling Gleam does, so at this point it doesn't really matter too much because Gothitelle, even though it cannot attack, it is still able to boost up Rillaboom's attack each turn, which will eventually secure this knockout.
Yeah, and I really like that both Gothitelle and the Politoed have access to Helping Hand on Darcy's team, because a lot of times with these rain matchups, with these weather games, it is the Helping Hands, it's the weather boosts that give you the damage and the momentum to take games that you otherwise could not win. And it was the Helping Hand U-turns at the end of the day that were able to out-damage those Dazzling Gleams from Whimsicott and bring the win for Game 1 over to Darcy.
That was such an awesome game, Gabby. The back and forth, it looked like both of them really had a chance in that matchup. And then, of course, Kingdra coming through in the clutch, connecting on Hydro Pump, which doesn't happen all the time. We know how VGC works. Not only connecting, but breaking through Cobalion's Assault Vest to knock it out there, underspeeding it in Trick Room, even though it's a super fast Pokemon with the rate up. That Game 1 had everything. Why do we even need the rest of the set?
I mean, I want to see the rest of the set because I want to see the adjustments that these trainers are going to put in. If you look at how that game played out, I can guarantee you that Brendan is going to think twice before using Tailwind again in front of a Pokemon just like Gothitelle. And you have to wonder, maybe the adjustment Brendan throws in is getting that Cobalion out onto the field sooner. If you were to lead, hypothetically, Cobalion and Whimsicott, a beat-up with a +4 attack boosted Cobalion with the Dynamax should be able to knock out a Gothitelle, maybe deal with the Focus Sash first. It will outspeed the Kingdra regardless of what rain is up. Like, it seems like the Cobalion is just like the natural adjustment here. So we'll have to see if Brendan goes for it. I do love the Trick Room Kingdra play though on Darcy. That was just some fantastic Pokemon, knowing your speeds, knowing Trick Room, knowing rain boosting, just a very well piloted rain team.
Absolutely. So let's get into Game 2 here to see how these trainers will adjust. I do like your option of leading Cobalion and Whimsicott because it's a tried and true strategy to beat up on turn 1, and that is exactly what we have here against Gothitelle and Kingdra. So Darcy can go for that same strategy if they want to, switching Politoed in. But think about this. You can either Dynamax and Max Guard this turn to set up Tailwind, and then next turn beat up, or you just go right for it.
That is such a good play, except for the fact that this is Assault Vest Cobalion and he doesn't have access to Max Guard, unfortunately. I think that would have been the strategic play here, since you know that the Gothitelle is going to need some chip damage down on it to break that Focus Sash and ultimately get knocked out. But it's looking like this Cobalion's just going to go for raw damage to see how this ends up. No switching in a Politoed this time.
No switching, so since last game is an indication that Cobalion is naturally faster than Kingdra, that would mean, as of right now, you don't even need the Tailwind boost because Cobalion will outspeed the Kingdra here. If Whimsicott went for the beat up, that'll give him an incredibly strong attack there with 4 attack, but it's not going to have that option because Darcy fake outs that Whimsicott slot instead. So Max Knuckle from Cobalion will go towards the Kingdra there, not doing too much damage there. Is going to gain one additional attack boost to itself there. Whimsicott not mattering on its attack, but Kingdra doesn't even need Politoed because of Max Geyser that will set up the rain after this attack, then activating Swift Swim for itself. So it's a Kingdra essentially acting as its own rain setter and rain attacker. It's a very efficient Pokemon.
It's very efficient thanks to the power of Dynamax, being able to set up your own weather. You know, Fake Out plus a Dynamax Pokemon is such a tried and true strategy. Seeing it adapted to the weather play is really just a very natural, I think, adaptation for this Kingdra.
Helping Hand from Gothitelle, since it already used Fake Out, there's really not much else it can go for on this turn. It will boost the attack from Kingdra. Tailwind on Whimsicott. It's going to double the speed of both of Brendan's Pokemon. Max Rockfall from Cobalion will not only do some strong damage now that it's +1, but it also gets rid of the rain. That means this turn, it's important for Darcy. Did Kingdra go for Max Airstream, which I was expecting, into that Whimsicott slot to take it out? Yes, Max Airstream, not Max Geyser, so Kingdra did not reset up the rain there, meaning sand is here to stay for at least this turn.
For at least this turn, but Darcy does have the opportunity to always switch in Politoed. You have to assume where there is Kingdra, Politoed will follow. Looking at how much damage that Kingdra has taken, I would assume that you want to switch in the Politoed just to get that one attack in. Especially when you look at Brendan's last two Pokemon, because those are Pokemon that'll very much prefer to have the sand up on the field. And if you have the opportunity to disrupt that, even if it is only for one turn, that rain boosted Max Geyser is going to be huge. We'll probably miss the knockout on the Cobalion, but at this point, I think you have to be worrying about the other two Pokemon that Brendan has. Trying to decide between the Tyranitar and the Lycanroc. Choosing the Tyranitar, which is interesting because that Lycanroc did have access to Focus Sash, and with one turn of Dynamax remaining, I would think that that natural bulk that a Focus Sash has would have been very beneficial for Brendan, but this Tyranitar packing that choice band item is going to do a lot of damage of its own.
The other issue, Gabby, that Brendan has to worry about is no matter what, Gothitelle switching into Politoed is something he can't really account for. Either this turn he leads the Lycanroc and then switches into Tyranitar, but because Lycanroc is faster than Gothitelle, it switches out first, meaning Tyranitar comes in, you get what I'm saying? Or he leaves the Tyranitar and Politoed still switches in, so no matter what, there was no way that Brendan could stop this Politoed switch and getting the rain up. So what is Brendan's answer? Obviously, you would assume that he understood Politoed was switching into that slot, so you don't have to worry about the Gothitelle with Helping Hand or anything. Instead, it will be a Max Geyser into that Tyranitar, and that is a clean one-hit knockout there. So no more sand for the rest of the game for Brendan, and now this rain is here to stay as Max Rockfall from Cobalion, remember, has one attack boost to its name. The Rockfall goes into the Politoed, so actually the Rockfall takes it down. If it went for Max Knuckle into the Kingdra, that would have not changed the weather, but a smart turn from Brendan, understanding that he really needed the sand to stay faster than Kingdra. This has been a back and forth set.
It has been a back and forth set, and truly a master class in how weather teams work. The key thing to note here, though, is that Brendan is down to his last two Pokemon, and Darcy still has all of his 4 Pokemon available to him. All Politoed has to do this turn is switch out into the Gothitelle, into the Rillaboom, into whatever that last Pokemon is on Darcy's side of the field, and then come back in, and then there is no more sand, there is no more Sand Rush, and that Lycanroc is just a mere Scald or 2 away from getting knocked out.
Kingdra is going to protect this turn, understanding it just needs to hang around on Darcy's end for one more turn. This Rock Slide will go into the Protect and does connect onto Gothitelle, though, so it is nice that we get to see Lycanroc coming out in this set as a Pokemon that's not really too prevalent in VGC, even introduced in its previous game in Alola. Not too much Lycanroc there, a little bit, but not as common as Rain, especially with Politoed and Kingdra in Sword and Shield. This is just the freest switch into Politoed you can think of, or you can just fake out with Gothitelle also and hit the Cobalion. That's a little riskier.
It's a little riskier, but I think it's Darcy's option to choose whether or not he wants to play slower, guarantee the win, or if he's just, riding that, I won game 1, I'm probably going to win game 2, and I can take a couple extra risks. I think that a seasoned Pokemon trainer knows that in this game there are many things that can happen, and it's always better to just play it slow and play it safe, but I have certainly been tempted to just go for that win condition as soon as you see it unfold before your eyes.
Oh, absolutely. So, Darcy playing it safe and switching in Politoed to reset up the Rain thanks to its Drizzle ability. That is going to make Kingdra the faster, or, double its speed, essentially. Because of that, Hydro Pump is risky, though, because you only have an 85% chance of connecting. Luckily for Darcy, it does connect. And we saw in Game 1 that was a clean KO. In Game 2, it does the same. The justified strategy has not worked out in this set so far. Rock Slide will take down Kingdra, so there's a little bit of solace in that Lycanroc can be happy that, it got a KO here in the Players' Cup broadcast. But besides that, Darcy is in a spot to clean this up and move on to Winners Round 2.
Yeah, that Rillaboom is the perfect last Pokemon to be facing off against this Lycanroc, knowing that Grassy Glide will be able to hit it faster. And then Politoed might not be the Pokemon that deals the final blow here. It looks like it should be knocked out by a Rock Slide, assuming it connects. But hey, if you can break a Focus Sash with a Fake Out and follow it up with a Scald, that's another win condition as well.
Absolutely, Politoed with that Scald in the Rain. Doesn't even need another turn. Doesn't even need any more help than that Fake Out from Rillaboom. And Darcy McCarthy is going to win this set 2-0. We can finally answer that weather question